Good morning. And thanks for being here. I know many of our families are away on vacation, so we're glad to have an audience here today. We hope that you'll be greatly benefited by being here. And we have a special guest with us. We have Lora. It worked out nicely that...
Backed by popular demand.
Yeah. And then also we'd like to welcome Andy Schuler, who is our trumpet player, and of course, Victor Garcia at the piano. As far as announcements go, this is my last Sunday for a while. I shall miss you, but I'm leaving you in really good hands. They'll be sent out this week, kind of order of services, who's preaching, and it's going to be people right here from your congregation. And I assure you, we have Paula, who's put together a really wonderful sermon, John Speakman, Sam Austin, who's back there, and so you're in for a really treat as they share their experiences and things that are meaningful to them with all of you. So, and I really appreciate them pitching in. And I believe we have something? Can we show it? This is our new Director of Religious Education, Brian Amos.
Hello, Mount Vernon. My name is Brian Amos, and in just a few short weeks, I will be stepping off a plane to join you as your new Director of Religious Education. I have to say, through the interview process, I was blown away by the kindness and the capability of this community. I genuinely believe that I found my spiritual home. A little bit about myself. I am a veteran educator, a lifelong student, an amateur writer, and a recovering academic. I am enthralled by the many arts and mediums by which the human-animal forms connection. I am fascinated by the scientific process and how it continuously reveals our world anew year by year and day by day. And a piece of me will forever be nestled in the roots of a 300-foot tall, 3 millennia old sequoia, struck by just how small and young I am. Through my work, I have two primary goals. First, to alchemize meaning from pain. And second, to form a bridge by which those who act from love can come together and in communion find their strength multiplied. That is to say, I do not believe that I have any special magic or secret knowledge. Rather, I believe that you possess already the necessary seeds of wisdom and understanding. I'm simply here to help them grow. Ultimately, as your DRE, I see myself as a vehicle for your will, your process of discovery. Toward that end, I have a few questions for everyone. Adults, what skills would you like to share or grow in? What do you think this community most needs? And how can we work together to provide that? Teens, what activities could we do here at Mount Vernon that you would be excited to ask your friends to come and do with us? And for our youngsters, those under 12, what single activity at Mount Vernon brings you the most joy? Whatever that is, I hope we do much more of it going forward. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Let's build something beautiful together.
He'll actually be arriving about 10 days before August 1st, but we'll be here for the August 2nd service as just observing, so those who are here will have an opportunity to get to know him. And there's a whole team that's working on welcoming him and helping him feel welcome. So thank you, team, in advance for what you're doing for that. And now, Victor, America the Beautiful, right?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I promise this really is my last Sunday. Okay, you've all heard that and witnessed, so. Our chalice lighting this morning is a poem and chalice lighting adapted from work by Reverend Tamara Labak. We gather this morning holding a common value, that the glory of this country rests first and foremost in its diversity. Out of many ideas, out of many beliefs, out of many views, out of many voices, out of many passions, out of many experiences, we are called to be one. One heart, one common good, one people. For all we dare to hope and dream, we kindle our chalice flame this morning. And now I'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing together hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Please also remain standing afterwards so we may recite our covenant to each other. The covenant is in the order of service or in the back of your gray hymnal. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve life and community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all. Be seated. I think I'll do our story time from up here today. I was thinking of a poem, and I'm wondering how many of you are of the generation where you used to memorize things for school. Yes? Do we still do that? Do you still have to memorize stuff and recite it? Okay, thank goodness, because I remember that was one of the most difficult things I've heard. Not the memorizing part, but the having to then stand up in front of other people and say, because despite my ability to do that now, many years ago, that was not my thing. But I remember, and I still remember this. I wonder if you remember this too, because Reverend Dave and I found out we had something in common here, though we grew up in very different places. This poem. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It goes on for some length, this poem, describing how this ride went and how the colonial troops were notified about the impending movements of the British troops. Some of it is what actually happened. Some of it was poetic license, because the poem was published in January of 1861, which was a substantial amount of time after that famous night in 1775. But for some of us, that's the history. This is how we know about Paul Revere's famous ride. The thing is that he wasn't the only one who went on that ride. There were several other people who were ready, willing, and able to go alert folks. Now, the other thing that I found out later was that he did not go running through the villages on the horse, shouting, "The British are coming," because that would have confused people at the time, because many of the people who fought in the War for Independence considered themselves to be British. So to say, run through in the middle of the night, waking people up by, banging on the door and ringing and all that kind of thing, shouting, "The British are coming," would have probably not gotten people out of their beds. The regulars are out. The British are out. That is what he was shouting. As in many things that are of utmost importance, it took more than one person to make this happen, right? More than one person had to send the word. And multiple ways to alert and spread the news. The poem ends this way. "So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, a word that shall echo forevermore. For borne on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere." We still hear those messages. Maybe not the hoofbeats anymore, maybe it's keystrokes, but the word is still passed. I came across another writer with a little bit different perspective. This is someone else you may have heard of, Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley, poet extraordinaire. She was enslaved. She was enslaved, and yet had access to a library and encouragement from the family to continue to read and to write and to publish her work, some of it at least. In the year 1784, the year she died, she published under her married name Phyllis Peters a poem entitled "Liberty and Peace," which first hailed America, the country of America, as Columbia, victorious over Britannia law. She was proud of her nation's intense struggle for freedom, that to her bespoke an eternal spiritual greatness. So though she did not enjoy that same freedom, she wrote this: "Britannia owns her independent reign, Hibernia, Scotia, and the realms of Spain, and great Germania's ample coast admires the generous spirit that Columbia, America, fires. Auspicious heaven shall fill with favoring gales, wherever Columbia spreads her swelling sails. To every realm shall peace her charms display, and heavenly freedom spread her gold ray." May it be so. May it be so. May it be so. Peace. I would now invite you to come forward, forming two lines, and light a candle for joy or for sorrow. I think we've sung the children out already. They're already out. So that worked out okay. They dismissed themselves. It's one of the beautiful things about Unitarian Universalist congregations that they financially support themselves. So we come to the time of offering. This congregation shares each week's plate with a local organization doing good social justice work. This month, the split plate funds will go to the Amica Center for Immigrant Rights. The Amica Center has been fighting for immigrant rights since 1999. According to their website, this center engages in unwavering legal defense and strategic litigation for immigrant children and adults facing detention and deportation. Everyone deserves access to due process and legal representation, and we work every day to make that a reality. The Center's nationally recognized work ranges from individual legal representation to wide-scale impact litigation that protects those seeking safety and keeps communities together. The Amica Center offers 3 major focus areas. A detained adult program provides educational sessions, intake, and connections to free legal services. Their children's program provides legal services for young people, reuniting them with their families and setting them up for success upon release. And an immigration impact lab that drives systemic change through groundbreaking impact litigation and establishes legal precedents that benefit immigrants nationwide. A personal note, as I was reading their website, Amica, ACLU, and CASA all were parties to an amicus curiae brief to slow or stop the conversion of a warehouse into a detention facility that's near my home in Western Maryland. Their reach is wide. The case is still ongoing as of June. So I ask you to please give generously to both this faith community and to the vital partnerships working for justice for all. Will the ushers please come forward? Thank you so much. Beautiful. I grew up in a lot of different places. My father was in the Air Force for 20-some years, 20 years and 6 months. He's very proud of that extra 6 months. It just so happened that he was stationed at Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts in 1976, which, as I did the math, was 50 years ago. Wait, what? 50 years ago? I'm not that old, am I? I am that old. I was 12 during the bicentennial of this country, and we happened to be living in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. You may have heard those names before. I'm not sure. You know Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. Yep, okay, good. So I sort of knew these things, but I didn't know them. What I knew was that our house had these great woods nearby, and I got to go play in the woods. There were trees, and there were stumps, and there were squirrels, and there were birds, and every once in a while there would be a stream. And then I found the stone walls. These random piles of maybe 3 or 4 stones high that ran, it seemed, for miles and miles. And I was so puzzled. Why are these random piles of stone winding through the woods? They were covered in lichen and moss and other things, so it looked like they'd been there a while. A long while. And like served no purpose anymore because, let's face it, the cows could walk over them, or the squirrels didn't care, and the deer just jumped. And then I realized that they were old, hundreds of years old, and probably marked out somebody's field way back when. And suddenly it wasn't just this weird pile of rocks anymore. Somebody's hands placed them there for a purpose. Now, I happen to be a reader and was reading things like Little Women and Joe's Boys and bits and pieces of Walden, even then. My family and I would canoe on the river that ran under North Bridge. Yes, that North Bridge. It was just where we lived, and it was just books I was reading, except that then I realized I could go visit Louisa May Alcott's house. So I did. I didn't touch anything, I promise. But I visited the home of the Alcotts and the Emersons. It was so real then. Tactile, at least the stones, not anybody's pens. It was so present. It wasn't just something that happened way back when. It had happened here, in this place, and I was now a part of it too. The stories weren't just stories. They were lichen-covered stone walls in the woods, town greens still open to all, old wayside inns that still served travelers' meals and still do today. The people and places were the roots of this country's beginnings, but also of my own life. It wasn't until I was an adult and got to go back and really see Emerson's house and get the grand tour and realize that the church there on the green had been a Congregationalist church, was now a Unitarian church, that I realized how deeply rooted Unitarian and Universalism both are in this country, how formational they were in the founding of this country. And in my own life, I was delighted to learn that Thoreau lived in the attic of the Emersons' house for a long time. That uncle who didn't quite have somewhere permanent to go, so they invited him in, and then he didn't leave. I think that that is some of what drew me back to Unitarian Universalism as an adult, because those were real people in my life when I was a kid. I remember reading the Transcendentalists, little bits and pieces, not quite getting it all the time when I was 12, but I remembered that I was connected that way. Those are my roots, just as they are the roots of this country. That's something that still kind of makes me go, wow, when I think of what is happening now in our country, that is not how it was formed. The Unitarians and the Universalists had great presence in the founding of this nation. They were highly influential. The Unitarians were one of the largest denominations in the country at one time. That makes me both happy and hopeful. That is where we come from. Maybe we'll go back, I don't know. We'll see. But I keep drawing on those roots in hope and in strength and in remembrance of all those who have come before and how they shaped our democracy, our way of being in the world, how they fell short sometimes, perhaps often, and how they kept questioning how they would be together and how people should be treated. So I keep hoping that we can live into that legacy, that we can bring that to the fore, that all people are created equal and important and have dignity and worth as they are, because those are our roots too. Thank you.
You know, roots are fascinating things. We rarely see them, yet they nourish everything above the ground. And without roots, there is no tree. But if a tree only grows roots and never reaches towards the sky, it never becomes what it was created to be. And America is like that. Today we celebrate our roots, not because they were perfect, but because they gave rise to an experiment unlike any the world had ever seen. And yet roots alone are not enough. Our task is to keep growing. We look at the ideals through history, the courage to imagine a self-government, liberty instead of monarchy, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the belief that ordinary people could shape their future. The Declaration declared that all are created equal. The nation took centuries and is still learning what all truly means. Each generation has widened the circle. Abolitionists, suffragists, our labor movement, civil rights, women's equality, disability, LGBTQ. America has often been its best when courageous people challenged America to become more like its own ideals. Our spiritual ancestors in Unitarian Universalism believed truth continues to unfold, conscious matters. Every person possesses inherent worth and dignity, and love is stronger than fear. Those beliefs help shape America. UUs have stood alongside movements for abolition, women's rights, civil rights, marriage equality, environmental justice, not because we seek power, because love requires participation. Now, what roots are we planting today that people will celebrate many years from now? Perhaps it will not be monuments. Perhaps it will be relationships. Relationships across differences. Every child welcome, every immigrant embraced, every person who discovers they belong, every act of compassion. These are our roots. Here at Mount Vernon UU, every Sunday we gather, we comfort one another, we laugh together, we feed each other, we teach our children, we sing, we mourn, we celebrate. This is how democracy survives. Not merely through elections, but through communities where people learn how to love one another. During the darkest days after the attacks of September 11th, 2001, a pear tree was found in the rubble of the former World Trade Center. It was a little more than a burned, broken stump, but its roots had been damaged, and many thought it would never survive. Workers carefully removed it and took it to a nursery, and for years they tended it, and slowly, incredibly, new branches appeared. New leaves emerged. Today that tree stands again at the National September 11th Memorial and Museum. It is known simply as the survivor tree. But what makes the tree remarkable is not that it escaped tragedy. It didn't. It bears the scars of what happened, but it also bears fruit. That is our America. We are not a nation without scars. Our history includes slavery, displacement of indigenous people, discrimination, injustice, violence, and division. And those scars are real. But scars are not the end of a story. Like the survivor tree, our strength comes from continually putting down new roots, growing new branches, and refusing to believe that broken things cannot bloom again. The roots of democracy are not found in perfection. They are found in resilience. They are found in relationships and people. In 1943, the troop ship SS Deutscher was struck by a German torpedo. As panic spread, 4 military chaplains, a Methodist minister, a Catholic priest, a Dutch Reformed, and a Jewish rabbi, worked together to calm the frightened soldiers. When life jackets ran out, each recovered and removed their own and gave them away. Witnesses said they were the last seen standing arm in arm on the deck, praying together as the ship slipped beneath the sea. Different faiths, different traditions. One shared humanity. Their final act reminds us that what saves a nation is not merely shared citizenship, it is shared compassion. I want you to imagine, just for a moment, our congregation making a quilt. And each and every person contributes 1 square. Some are bright, some are faded, some are stitched perfectly, others are uneven. 1 square by itself is beautiful but limited. Together they become something capable of warming generations. America is much like that quilt. No single generation completed it. Each generation has added another piece. Now the needle has been placed into our hands. What will we sew into the fabric? As I prepared this sermon, I realized something. I've spent a lot of my life searching for roots. And sometimes I look for them in success, and sometimes I look for them in ministry, and sometimes I look for them in relationships, and sometimes I look for them in other people's approval. And whenever I rooted myself in something that could be taken away, I found myself anxious, afraid, or feeling alone. But over the years, life has taught me a quieter truth. Our deepest roots are not planted in places or possessions. They are planted in our values. They're planted in love. They're planted in courage. They are planted in community. And every time we choose compassion over fear, every time we welcome someone who feels like an outsider, every time we stand up for justice, those roots grow deeper. So here is my challenge to each of you this week. Don't leave our roots in this sanctuary. Take them with you. Call the person you've been meaning to call. Welcome a stranger. Forgive someone. Plant something. Write the letter. Speak up for someone whose voice is being ignored. Take 1 courageous step that makes love a little more visible in this world. Because roots were never meant to keep us buried. Roots exist so we can grow. And here's the promise. If you plant your life deeply in love, if you keep reaching toward one another, if you continue choosing hope when fear seems easier, then generations from now, people you will never meet will rest in the shade of the tree that you planted. 250 years ago, others planted trees whose shade we now enjoy. Now it is our turn. May we be deeply rooted, bold in our growth and in our generous with our branches. May those who come after us think, or simply thank humanity that we chose to plant love. 250 years ago, people planted a tree they knew they would never sit beneath. They believed that freedom could grow if ordinary people cared for it. That tree has weathered storms, it has lost branches, sometimes we have wounded it ourselves. But every generation has had the opportunity to help it grow again. Today, the question is not whether America deserves our hope. The question is whether we will become the people who make hope possible for those who come after us. The roots are deep. The branches are still growing. And the next chapter begins with us. We celebrate 250 years not because America has arrived. We celebrate because the journey continues. We honor those whose courage planted their first roots. We remember those who widened the circle of freedom, and now the work belongs to us. For the greatest chapters of America's story are not behind us. They are waiting to be written by ordinary people. People who choose love over fear, hope over cynicism, community over division. May we become deep roots of compassion. May we grow wide branches of welcome. And may those who come after us discover that we left them not merely a stronger nation, but a more loving one. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise and join in singing our closing hymn, number 148, Let Freedom Span Both East and West.
Will you join in extinguishing our chalice with the words we say each week? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
For 250 years, this nation has been becoming. Not perfect, not finished, always unfinished. And each generation inherited the promise and the failures of those who came before. Each generation had to decide whether fear or hope, division or compassion, exclusion or welcome would shape the next chapter. And now it is our turn. The story of America is no longer simply found in history books. It is being written in conversations we have. The people we choose to love, the neighbors we choose to welcome, the justice we pursue, and the courage we find to stand for one another. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe Revelation is not sealed. Truth continues to unfold. The work of freedom is never complete because love is never complete. It is always calling us to become more than we are today. May we leave this place grateful for those who came before us, not because they finished the work, but because they handed it to us. May we have the wisdom to learn from our history, the humility to acknowledge where we have fallen short, and the courage to shape a future worthy of those who will follow us. The next 250 years begins not tomorrow, but today, with us. Now go in peace. Go now in hope. Go with grateful hearts, open minds, and willing hands, and may love continue the work of becoming. Blessed be. Amen.